Okay, so I'll briefly go over the general stuff and the timeline and everything because I think all of you have been on frequently to know this. So we're going to quickly go over that. But then what I'd like to do is get into some of the meat of where you guys are at with your plan, your drafts, so that you guys can critique each other and learn from each other. And my goal is that you don't write the same thing, but you might see an approach that someone else took that might be like, oh, maybe I want to do that. Or you might provide them some input as if I was reading this, I would ask this question type of thing, like, what is this? So we'll go over that, and we're going to take a deeper dive into the rubric so that you guys can understand what elements are required. You guys know this, just take the classes and develop the plan. The expectation is a complete plan by August 20th, and as well as the presentation for review by the committee, by myself, Jim, and Chad. So that way they have time to look at it. I will have already looked at a lot of your stuff, so I will already kind of know that you're in a spot to be, you're in a good spot type of thing. They might have a few comments before your presentation, but a lot of it will be provided during your presentation, their comments. So today is July 14th. That's the day we were at. I should have crossed out a lot more of these and I should be in presentation mode, but you know, that makes life, this is what life is right now. So I have added a date on here, August 6th. This summer has, well, this year for me at least, has just gone by super fast. I'm still trying to figure out how it's mid-July. So what I added for you guys, if you're a deadline person and you need to give yourself another deadline before the 20th of August when you should be complete, if you get stuff to me by August 6th, I will turn around in that next week. I will review everything and provide you feedback again. But after that, I probably won't be able to. So if you can get that done by August 6th, that'd be helpful for you, as well as give you one last overview. And this could include your presentation or it could just include your plan, however you want to do it. But I give you my word that I will review it that following week and get it to you by that next Friday. Because I know those who submitted their stuff June 25th, I am almost done reviewing everybody's, and I will get it to you either today or no later than this coming Friday. And on my timeline, I have to get it back to you by July 16th. So we are in line for that one. But again, I will do a quick turnaround if you get everything to me August 6th. And then everything will be submitted August 20th. We also, and that's when I will send it on to Chad and Jim for their review, their quick comments, if they want to provide any, if they have any questions that they want you to think about for your presentation and stuff. Generally, they don't have a ton to say during the review part, but they will be providing you information and feedback during the presentation, like I said. And then that August 31st is our final review, and that's really for the presentation. And the last time we talked and we went through this process, we talked about setting up some mock presentations because you guys were a little worried about going through your presentation and how to present. And so what I will probably do is send out a doodle poll to see where you guys, like a doodle poll, if you haven't used it before, I give you options of times and you say what works best for you. And what I'll probably do is lump you into like groups of 3 or so. And that way you guys can present to each other and everybody can kind of get a feel. Because what is, we don't have a lot of examples right now because we only have 2 MTEM people. And so you guys are a little like, what do I do? So to hopefully help the deer in the headlight look, maybe I think we're going to think about doing, you guys liked it, the idea of doing the mock presentations around the 31st of August. And then you'll present at conference. I have slots set aside for MTEM presentations. I think I have 9 available times. So some of you might have to present virtually, or I have to, or I'm going to figure out the schedule or work with you to see if there's another time during the week of conference that we could possibly go through the presentation part. So that's where we are on that.
Ashley, I have a question. So on August 20th, the final energy management plan document and presentation is due. Can we talk about the presentation part a little bit?
We're going to at the end.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm going to do that part of as we talk about the rubric, but yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So the rubric is what we're going to really take a deep dive into today. And I have examples, and I have, I think, all but a couple of the plans pulled up that you guys have submitted. And so we'll kind of go back and forth. These are all the sections. A lot of you have the first few sections semi-completed, and you're just working on to get through the last sections. So, and when I review it, I keep in mind that this is a draft, but I also just tend to ask questions as a reminder, don't forget this part type of thing. So my general recommendations, and I've added a few as I've gone through these, be descriptive yet concise. So a lot of the times I feel when I'm reading them, I want more info. You guys are being a bit too concise. And so I want more info. I want you to tell me a bit more, because if I don't know anything about energy management, I have no clue what you're talking about. So when I ask you questions like, what is KBTU? We all know that I truly know what it is, but if I'm a reader who doesn't know anything about this, I don't know what that is or why it's important to do BTUs. Also, that goes on to the next bullet of don't assume everyone knows what you're talking about. But the main, not just acronyms, but the main thing with this is help the reader read your plan. Does that make sense? Your formatting does matter. And I know that a lot of this is draft form, but when I have to think too much when I'm reading something, I get very frustrated. And so if I understand where you're going and have an idea and assuming certain things, I can only imagine what a reader would be doing that isn't in my same position. So really try to help the reader read your plan the best you can. And just keep that in mind as you go through things. That's giving them more info than you think is needed, but in a concise manner. I know that's kind of confusing and contradictory, but that's how life is. Complete everything in the rubric. That's why we're going to go through these, because I think in some across the board, some of you guys are just missing little things just to make a whole picture type of thing. And then when you're going through this, try to avoid using we, ours, your, those type of words. My, I. This is your organization's plan to use, and so you don't own it. The department doesn't necessarily own it. So when you say we are going to do this, well, don't just be the energy management department is responsible for doing this or something like that. Change some of your verbiage to take out the we and the ours, because some of you go back and forth and it gets really confusing. And then just do it. Just get it done. So I think a lot of you guys are in a good position to keep moving forward and to get it done within the next 6 weeks or so. And so, but it is a lot of work and a big commitment, but I have faith in you guys to get it all done. Any questions or clarifications on these? We're going to go through some of these examples. Okay. So this is the initial page of the rubric, which we've really looked at. And you guys know the sections, you know everything. But if you haven't looked at the next pages, then you're missing out on a big chunk of what you're supposed to be providing in the plan. So I'm just going to go to the next page. Okay. So within the executive summary, it should be about a page long. A couple of you do a page and a half. Some of you do a quarter of a page. So this is kind of where you need to provide a good example, a good introduction to your plan, what energy management is in general, why a plan is needed, and how you're going to use the plan. So that is kind of, some of you do it well, some of you do it poorly. but again, you're in draft form, so you're just spitting things out from your brain and typing them down. So let's reformulate some of that and think about that a little bit. So this is a simple one. Here's a couple examples, and I know they're kind of hard to see, so let me put this in presentation mode. You guys just see the presentation, right? Not the presenter mode? Nope, you see that. Hi, dang Zoom. There we go. Good? Okay. Thank you, guys. So what I liked about Melissa's on the Klein ISD intro, she gave just an introduction of the district, and that was interesting because it kind of shapes how the district does things in some ways. You might not have an interesting story. You don't have to provide it, but if you can give an underlying, like a foundation as to how the district works, that would be helpful in some cases. And then let me see, now my whole screen's messed up. Hold on, please hold. Let me pull up hers so I can see my comments. And she hasn't received my comments yet, so you guys get to see her comments with my comments. I did it last night at 11, and I didn't think you'd really want to look at it then. Okay. Okay, so and then she starts discussing the committee, but in her plan, this is from what I could see, the only part that she discussed the committee. So I wanted more info on that. And I think in the executive summary, in some cases, depending on how you're presenting it, it's perfectly fine to introduce the committee if they're, especially at like Klein, because I know they're a valuable aspect or have been a valuable aspect and from what Chad had started. So I know that it is a very integral part to the program. So it's important to mention there, but then later on in the document, explain it a bit more. We're going to go over that when we talk about the energy management department. And then you have Shauna's on the other side. It's very brief. It gives an introduction to energy management. It gives some bullet points of the objective and the mission and everything. And so that's also laid out nicely. And it also tells what the purpose of the document is. So it's not just saying this is the energy management department, this is what we do. It's saying we need this document because this, and this. Okay. And then Danny for Rockwall did a good job, and he lays it out specifically of what I was saying that Shauna had done. He introduces it generally, gives the mission, the purpose, and the goals and objectives. And so he kind of summarizes the policy, and I'm going to guess that some of this is just straight from the policy that is adopted. I get some of yours confused when I'm reading all of them, but so he lays it out right here. So that's nice. So you guys might, if you do have an executive summary that takes up a quarter page, it might benefit you to think about introducing your mission and everything there. Does anybody have questions about the executive summary part? Comments, suggestions to make things easier for someone else? Okay. That section was a little easier. Okay, this section is Energy Management Department. You're introducing the department's tasks and responsibilities, the roles of who's within it, just going into more detail with your energy policy, whether you have one or not, if you want to make changes, that type of thing, if you need to readopt changes and stuff like that. And then operation guidelines. Basically, you're giving what we do now. This is what we do. This is how we operate. This is who's included. Okay, so whose was this? Gary, I think this is yours. Yes. So this is Gary's with Klein. And sometimes I let you see my comments, and if not, they're all on the MTEM Google site. if you guys want to go look at someone else's and see their comments. Now I close my thingy and I can't see my comments of what I was going to say here. Okay. Gosh darn it. Okay, so for this one, Gary does a good job of just saying this is what we do, but he also, it doesn't provide, sometimes he jumps into the info a little bit too much and gets into the details a little bit too much of, but not providing the detail to the reader. And so he starts discussing procurement and everything, because that for him, he's introducing the energy management department as they take care of the utility bills, they do with the procurement and stuff like that. So, and then he jumps in, my thing is in the way, hold on one second. There we go. He jumps in and talks about retro commissioning. What's lacking here, I think, is cohesiveness throughout. So I have to kind of think, okay, one, I have to know what retro commissioning is. And then below that, I have to know what these are for. So what is this a list of? That's my comment there. And what is control systems, but what's the point of those type of things? So as you're going through that, if it's something that you think is a bit general to you, think about whether you need to define it or not. Okay. And then what Michael Barnes did with Alvin ISD, and I kind of like this approach. I would say he's struggling being consistent with it, but I liked the approach. He literally took the 16 responsibilities, and what he is doing throughout his whole plan is and like I said at the beginning, you don't have to do this. I'm giving you an idea of a different approach or how to apply some of the things. What he is doing and his intention throughout, for each section, he has an introduction, and he ties those 16 responsibilities to that section. So in the energy management department, he introduces the overall 16 responsibilities. In the database section, he discusses which responsibilities tie to the database, and so on. And then to go further, he discusses for each building within the information database, he discusses the buildings per building, which responsibilities need improvement and stuff like that. He needs to expand on it and go a bit further with it, I think, but it's an interesting approach to tie those 16 responsibilities to your entire plan and point out your strengths and weaknesses throughout, so that at the end, you can identify the opportunities in the evolving program. Does that make sense? That's what he's trying to do. He's working on it, and it's a very interesting approach. Some of you guys are taking different approaches, and so I have to stay within your format. But I wanted to point that out, that I think if some of you went back to the energy management department and just thought about the responsibilities and not just put in your job descriptions, you would hit a lot more of the things you need to talk about. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Okay. The information database, you guys are kind of all over the place. And I think with this one, well, let me say one thing on the energy management department. Let me go back to this one. So again, highlight the task and the roles. This might be an opportunity to talk about your committee and your existing programs. So if you already have a good behavioral management program, talk about it here. Say these are our achievements within the department. These are our strong programs. And that's kind of part of your operations. So think about that as well. And when you talk about maybe the operation guidelines, a couple of you have done this, tie it back to that position that does it. Who's in charge of this, and why is it important? Always ask yourself, why is this important? What should someone understand by reading this? Okay, I think that's all for that one that I wanted to say. So back to information database. Some how do I want to say this? Some of you are providing just the utility information. And again, it's drafts, so I get it. But tell us about the buildings too. Some of you are just telling us about the buildings. Tell us about the utilities too. And so let's look at a couple of examples. And let me point out here, work order history is on here. If your energy management department doesn't do much with work order history, which meaning you're not in charge of it, then discuss how you use it to determine projects and how you utilize, because that's just another source of data, right? So discuss how you utilize that data to determine projects and determine needed changes or commissioning type things of changing how things run and whatnot. So think about how you use all of this. Because I know some of you aren't in the facility department, so you might not have anything to do with work orders or equipment inventory, but you still have to have an idea of what it is and what those pieces of equipment are for and stuff like that. Okay, so this is Michelle with Plano. I'm going to ask you guys this. What would you add and what is valuable to what she has put here?
Well, she talks about the building a lot, which is very helpful, but nothing in there about energy. No benchmarking, no.
Mm-hmm. So yes, that's kind of my observation. I like that she gives both a narrative description and of the building, but also the table. But in the table, she could potentially, if she has the info, she could potentially add EUI, ECI, different things to grab, even if it's natural gas or electric or both, that type of thing. What is the main source of power and stuff like that? Or if depending on the equipment, it operates on something different, which she does down further in other parts because she has geothermal and stuff in some of her buildings. But so that is kind of my thing. And I know for some of you, I wanted to point this out, and I want to get your opinion because maybe it's just my opinion and I need to be swayed to think differently. I don't always like it when you guys point out specific vendors. In this case, where she points it out, I think it's okay because it's a piece of HVAC equipment that's specific to that building, and it is important to know the vendor, you know, the carrier that is carrier. She has Train and other parts and stuff. So it's important to know that type of equipment. My thing is when you guys are talking about control systems, when you're talking about a database, like you mentioned School Dude and stuff like that. If it's a platform that could be switched to something else easily, that one year you just might decide, well, we don't like School Dude anymore, we're going to use someone else. Those type of things, I think you need to use an energy management platform, database platform, or some general term so that you can easily switch through so you're not locking yourself into a specific vendor. Because it's not as if the vendor is a proprietary type thing. You know what I mean? For that as an example. Or if you're talking about controls and you say climate tech type thing, just say controls. I think that kind of within your plan, it makes it a bit easier to be a bit more organic and not so stuck in the time of 2021. That's my opinion. Does anybody have something to say to that?
Yeah, well, actually, like if these chillers are old, which is it has R22, if you're gonna replace them, then it's gonna change your wording. Then
yes,
if you replace it with another brand, I would just say 2 air-cooled chillers.
Yes.
Because
Here,
if you replace them and you get another brand, then it's not.
You still have 2 air-cooled chillers, but they might be a different brand.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my thing. I think here is a bit different because you're telling the story of that building right now, but try not to lock yourself into future vendors. So, but yeah, I agree. Any other comments on this? If I don't know much about buildings, do I need to be told what that picture is of the rooftop stuff? Do I know what that is? So yeah, try to be, this is, a lot of you put pictures and graphs and they're great, but you'll find that I comment, what is this? Or tie it to, like, all she would have to do is put the 2 carrier air-cooled chillers, figure 1, you know what I input, figure whatever underneath that. So, okay. She might also add the usage of the building, just because it's an elementary school. What if it's an admin building? What if it's a like a fleet services type building? And so that she might want to add that. Generally, what you would put in like portfolio manager, what else would you add type thing. Okay, this is you, Melissa, I think. So this is where I discussed the vendors. What is the point of this? It might make sense to call out these vendors because she talks about we're replacing all of these with network thermostat. It might make sense to sometimes call them out, but then I'm asking, well, why are you replacing them all type of thing? Also, when you use an image, make sure it's legible. You can't read what that is, so does it do you any good? And that might be all you want to show, just so the people get the idea of what it looks like. You don't necessarily have to read it, but then put figure whatever or put some sort of caption under it and tie it back to the body. And then one thing, if you discuss an issue, so Melissa discussed irrigation controls because they're doing a lot of irrigation projects at Klein right now, which is great to hear. But then tell me, why is it helpful to identify leaks, and what do you do in response? How do you respond? That type of thing. Tell me a bit more. So in this one, what is KBTU? What Michael Barnes did, which I liked, and I hadn't thought of it, he did a glossary at the very beginning, definitions. So he took place of it, took care of all of this at the very beginning of his plan. And so if you want to consider doing that, if not, just make sure you explain things within the document. I liked how Melissa just defined EUI, ECI, and UCI, and introduced it well. She gave a good, understandable definition of what it is and how they use it. And then I tend to read things backwards. Like, if this is just me, I'm weird, I know. I read a magazine backwards. I start from the back and go to the front. And so sometimes I end up reading your documents backwards, or because I'm flipping around and everything. And so if I make a comment and then I notice you addressed it above, or if you address it after, I still go back and I let you know that, okay, I see where you addressed this, but maybe should it be included here or there, or change it up a bit. I know, I'm weird. I read magazines backwards. Gives you a different view of life. Okay, so any questions? If you can think of your own information database, any questions to that stuff? No? Okay, let's go back to this thing. Describe it. Don't just give campus descriptions, provide some utility information, and don't just give utility information, provide campus descriptions. If you have a large district, we only expect you to do 10. So don't think you have to provide information that you might or might not have for all of your buildings. Because frankly, I don't want to read all of them. So I want you, and when you grab the 10, a lot of you have already done this. You've grabbed the 10 and you've done a good representation of the district. You didn't just do elementary schools. You did a variety of different buildings. Okay. So continuing analysis. I know they're drafts, but this seems to be the area that you guys struggle with the most. What do you think you might talk about? See, my next slide is blank because we don't have much to go off of with this one. So what might you think is the point of the continuing analysis section?
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Gary and I had a really good discussion about this the other day, actually. My envision of it, because I have not completed my continuing analysis section, but and Gary was a little ahead of me on this game, actually quite a bit ahead of me on this game. But my vision was that it would be incorporating all of the data that you have in your database and saying, okay, we have all these numbers and we have all this information. What are we doing with it moving forward? Like, okay, now we have the numbers. Now let's make sense of it. Let's put it in a language that everybody can use in order to help us, continue to move forward with the program.
Yes. So it's how, if you notice, each of these sections build upon each other. So we set up the departments. We know what it should look like. We know what it looks like at this time. There might need to be some changes. There might need to be some reorganization. You might need some different resources. You're going to talk about that in I should actually be going up, not down. You're going to talk about that in the evolving program. So you have the department, you have the data, you gather all the data. You might be missing some data. You might discuss briefly, we are going to look into tracking water better. That's a big hot topic of people needing to track their water better. And this is why. You're going to talk about how you're going to do that in the evolving program. So you have the data, but what are you doing? You collect it all. Is it static? Is it going to sit on the shelf type of thing? You talk about in the continuing analysis, this is how we're going to use the data. This is how we're going to get, not just use it, because you talk about using it in the information database, but this is how we're going to apply it and continue to make things. And this is how we're going to communicate that. Communication is a big part of this one. And like Melissa said, make it understandable to everybody and to keep your program going. Because then once you can continue to analyze it and provide the information to everybody, you can truly evolve the program and become something more. So you might discuss your control systems of what things might need to be updated, changed, and everything, and what information you might share through the control systems after you do analysis to be able to get that done. You might discuss how your maintenance and custodial practices will continue. This might include some updates, some changes to what they do, and then also some design specifications. We are going to continue to purchase electricity. We need electricity. And so how do you take that data to help you purchase electricity? And then how are you going to continue to communicate that? So those are different things you might apply. So if you already do a energy management program and you discuss that as one of your strong programs in the energy management department, I would recommend that you take a look at Danny and Shauna's, each of their plans on the site. I have to upload Shauna's, but I think I won't upload it. But the reason being, within their energy management department section, they talk about the programs they already do. And so you can get an idea of how it is relevant to talk about successful programs. And then here in the continuing analysis, you're going to talk about how you're going to continue to do that program, what benefit it provides, what additional programs you might do based on it. Then in the evolving program, you're going to just add, these are the resources we need to do. This is what we're going to look for, these finances to continue to help us and grow. We might need to add additional staff. We need to reorganize something. We need to do these projects type of things. The continuing analysis might be more projects that you have already planned and what you're going to achieve from them, whereas the evolving program might be potential projects. I personally would just do a separate work plan, but that's not, we don't have that worked into this quite yet. Okay, so let me do this. I'm gonna share. Does anyone else have something to say within the continuing analysis part? And or anything while I look for this? Oh, that reminds me. If you guys talk about benchmark for excellence, tell me a little bit more about that. A couple of you talk about it. So who's in charge of it? Who do you get compared to? Just don't say we do benchmark for excellence. Tell me a little bit more about it. I just scrolled down one that reminded me of that. So, okay, I'm going to share this. This is Manny's, and he has a pretty well put together continuing energy analysis. What he has done is he has taken every item on the rubric generally, and he's talked about it. So go through that rubric and just make sure you have a heading for it and that you talk about it a little bit. But he talks about how audits and recommissioning help them to continue to analyze their facilities. Talks about how the behavioral management program helps to continue to do these things. And I'll tell you, when Manny started, he didn't have a lot of narrative. He had a lot of bullet points. So he has gone through and tried to add a little bit more narrative, because he's probably tired of me saying, stop it with the bullet points and add some more information. And so just try to expand on, if you have bullet points, they're perfectly fine. I'm a bullet point person. Sometimes it's the easy route to provide a lot of information, but you got to introduce them. Just don't throw bullet points on the page. You got to tell me what the point is of them. Okay. So what he did, maybe here on the control system, you guys all get caught on this, the control stuff of introducing it, but give a bit more information. So that was Manny's approach, and I just wanted to share that because that's just one page. So it works. He started introducing it, and he explained how we continue to use it. Okay. I think that's probably the one. That got the most. So Danny is doing his a little differently than you guys. Danny, do you want to explain how your approach, and I don't expect anybody else to do this, so don't think I'm recommending this for everybody, but can you explain your approach of writing this plan?
Well, my approach, a little different than what I've seen, is that I was writing a plan that I could hand to somebody to better understand what an energy management program needs. Not necessarily what our district was doing and what was successful in our district. I use a lot of examples from our district because fortunately we've had a lot of successes, but really I wrote the whole thing that I could just hand it to somebody that could understand what we were doing. They could take it as an example of what they might do in their district, why it was successful in our district, some of the pitfalls I found that we went through, things like that. I mostly wrote it as a guide, to be honest. And
so Danny has written you guys all a how to write an energy management plan, but there are a lot of similarities to what you guys have done. So, and I liked this approach from Danny, and it works for him to do because it works with how he does energy management. But so one, introduce the section, like I've said, but he just talks about audits just as Manny did. He talks about benchmarking, how it will continue to help them, internal and external. Discusses power factor, because that might in their district is an important thing to continually analyze. So that's a good way to look at things. Now that I think of it, sometimes my brain takes a little bit of time to think of what I'm going to say. But it's how are you going to continually analyze this? So that's a good way to do it. He talks about 4CP, and I'm just throwing this out there for some things for you guys to think of. TDSB charges. And I asked certain things. So in here, Danny just briefly says, like, they're not negotiable. So my question is, well, why can't I negotiate them? What are they, type of thing? And then they continually look at their design guidelines, how they work with their construction department and facility department, how commissioning continues to help them. So those are some topics you could talk about within that section. So I just wanted to point that out and provide some information on that. Does that help you guys understand, shape continuing analysis a little better? I know it's kind of vague. Okay. And then the evolving program, I kind of already introduced how I put this together, and I'm not on this right now, so hold on, guys. How each part of the plan builds on the next part. And so the evolving program is, this is how we're going to succeed. This is how we're going to continue to grow. This is how we're going to get our seat at the table type of thing. And so talk about improving facility improvement program, how you develop that. If you have a work plan already established, how you do that. So how do you take the information from your database? How do you continually analyze it to develop your improvement program? That includes sometimes preventive maintenance, your project prioritization, and how you're going to finance it. So talk about that. And when you talk about the financing, don't just tell me you're going to go after SECO loans. Provide how you decide and prioritize to get information. And the M&V process. How are you going to continually show that your projects work? I think in some cases, people tend to forget the M&V process. Okay. So Danny introduces, no, that's not what I want. The PM, and yes, I will switch it. And that's a good thing, but I don't know what a PM program is. I don't know why it's important, and I'm not quite sure what it might look like. So in Danny's case, he's, like I said, and he said, pretty much giving a how-to energy management plan, implement an energy management plan. So I need a bit more info of, well, what might this look like? Then Shauna did a good job of introducing the evolving program, so I wanted to share that. Within their thing, Arlington ISD, being both from Arlington ISD, they both kind of had the same info within the evolving program. They talked about boiler optimization and preventive maintenance, but Shauna provided an intro to give a basis for all of that information. And whereas Danny just kind of threw it there. So give me info so I can kind of put it all together and understand what I'm looking at. And then when you talk about, I don't have it here, when you talk about these different topics, explain them and why they are important. Because for both of you guys, I'm a little not sure the connection to the boiler optimization program. So I'm sure it's legit and it's a good thing to do, but explain it a bit more. Okay. And then Melissa is working on hers. Like she said, she didn't have anything for continuing analysis. But I wanted to point this out because within her evolving program, it's all draft form. I get it. But she starts talking about the stakeholders and potential savings and opportunities for savings, and communication in both ways, internal, external, how that works. And so my question was, who are the stakeholders? What are the potential savings? How are these savings determined? What opportunities does savings have or avoided cost, and what's the difference? What do those make? What does that make? How does communication both ways work, and now and in the future? So I'm not saying she needs to address that in the evolving program. I'm saying don't forget to talk about that in the plan and close it out in the evolving program. So don't introduce anything really completely new in the evolving program, unless it's like a new program or something that's a little different. But if it's something, who are the stakeholders? Who should I be thinking of when I do this? I should know that before I get to the evolving program. Does that make sense? Clear as mud? Okay. So let's talk quickly. Oh, does anybody have any questions about anything with the evolving program? Any questions about comments you've received from me or clarification needed on really any of this? Okay. So with the presentation, again, you guys all have different formats of your plans. You guys are all going about it a little differently. You present it differently. You generally all have the same information within it, but you present it differently. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you to do a PowerPoint presentation. I would encourage you to do a PowerPoint presentation because it will help you to outline everything and get it put together. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you to do that because it's your plan, it's your thing. I think I don't think no, he did. They both did. Both David and Marcia, when they did it, they did a PowerPoint, but David's was very short, and he mainly just got up there and talked, and we flipped through the plan. So if you are good at presentations, if you can just get up there and talk, I'm not saying you need a presentation, but you probably need some sort of thing to go off of. But if you struggle with presenting and getting up there and talking, you need some sort of reminders, I would go the PowerPoint route so that you have a visual to look at. I wouldn't, your presentation is going to be probably about 25 to 30 minutes because our conference schedule is jam-packed and that's really all I have time for. And so your presentation will be about 25 to 30 minutes. Then we'll spend 15 minutes discussing and giving feedback and asking questions. And then you're done. And then the last 15 minutes of that hour slotted for you will be us going through your rubric and giving you your final score, which you will learn that week. And so what I would do within the presentation, like I said, would do a PowerPoint. I would do a couple slides, maybe just one slide for your executive summary. That could be your intro. Tell us about it. Why is this important? Then I would do a couple slides for each section after that. I would probably, I would probably, I personally like more graphics than I do words on presentations, but make it how you need it to be so you know what you're talking about. And then you will also be scored on communication. So make sure you can clearly communicate this. If you don't know much about lighting, but you're an HVAC person, try not to mention lighting too much so we don't necessarily ask too much about lighting type of thing. Talk about your strong points. Talk about your plan. Is that helpful at all?
What did you say at the first one to be the summary?
So yeah, I would just, let me go back here. Oops. let me go back to this. Maybe if I can get to it. This works.
The executive summary.
Yeah, have that be your intro. Start talking about why your organization has a plan or is creating this plan, where they are with the policy. Introduce it. Go through your plan just as if you're, and then give a couple slides on each section.
Okay.
And you might have a few more than a couple. I mean, it depends, but just keep in mind that the presentation is 25 to 30 minutes. We want you to be able to do this. I don't know how you guys operate with your boards, if you have like a preschool board meeting where you can give longer presentations or not, or if you only can give at the school board meeting. Just at the school board meeting. Okay. So typically you would have maybe 5 minutes there. We want you to think of this as a deeper dive. So maybe for some of you, school board presentation is not the best example. I used to be able to present to at the pre-meeting a longer presentation and a brief presentation at the actual council meeting. So what I think of it as is that longer, more descriptive. So maybe you think of it more as a presentation to your CFO, and maybe the superintendent might get a special meeting type thing. That it's a deeper dive into what you're doing, but you're trying to sell this to them. You want them to adopt it type of thing and understand why. So introduce it, go through each section with a couple, 2, 3, 4 slides, depending on what you're trying to tell. So energy management department, you're going to tell us about the department, how it operates. Just as you did in the plan, you're going to tell us about it in the presentation, and then just continue from there. Did that help, Danny?
Yes. Thank you.
Danny?
Yeah, that does clear up a lot. I was confused on whether we were trying to defend our plan with the panel at TEMA or if we were trying to present to the panel at TEMA like they were our board. And I think you cleared that up for me.
It's a little bit of both. Your defense will really be in our questions at the end. So, but yeah, you're just introducing the plan and telling us about it and saying this is why, this is what we need.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
That was very helpful.
Okay. So any other questions, concerns? Go back to this. You guys know how to contact me. If you haven't received your plan back from me, you will get it today or tomorrow. I hope to finish. I think I just have 2 left to do that I haven't done. So you will get it back today or tomorrow. And that August 6th, if you want a quick turnaround, get it to me by August 6th, and I will get it back to you by the following Friday. And then August 20th is when it's all due. If you are having issues, if you just need to write finish one more thing and you need, just keep in contact with me. Let me know where you are and we can figure it out. We are also doing presentations in April. So if we have to push it, we have to push it. I want you guys to finish and just be done with it. And I know you guys just want to be done with it. So, but I also don't want you guys to have additional stress when we have another opportunity coming a lot faster than we typically do. So yeah, just keep that August 20th date on your calendar as it's due. We're no longer talking about draft form. It's the final everything. I think.
Do you need to see our PowerPoint presentation or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That
Okay.
presentation, the document, the plan document, and the presentation are due the 20th.
Okay.
Because there's 13 of you guys, so it will take some time for Jim and Chad to go through it all. So they have basically a month to go through it all. Everybody's.
Okay.
So it will help to kind of, because we'll already formulate some questions for your Q&A at the end of your presentation. So having the actual PowerPoint in addition to the plan is helpful. Anything else, guys? I kept us under an hour. So excited.
This was really good, Ashley. Thanks for all the info. That kind of, I know we were kind of struggling with the whole, how to differentiate the continuing analysis and the evolving program. So today kind of cleared that up. So that's kind of where I stuck.
Yeah, since we've been doing the online courses, we've kind of taken a different, you're still taught the same thing, but I'm trying to interject and to help formulate a few more things as we go through this, hopefully a bit more successfully. But yeah, I'm working on that. Okay, guys, that is all I have. If you have any questions, again, you know how to get a hold of me, and just let me know. Okay, and help each other out. I mean, I know you, Melissa and Gary, and then Shauna and Danny, you guys are all together, but don't hesitate, you guys, to help each other out. If you have a question, you can email the whole group, or you can say, hey, can you ask me to email and ask everybody for their opinion if you want? Just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.